Hello again. Yeah, I got my voice back. Sorry for the technical issue before. I just wanted to try to tell you the 5 minutes and we will be back. Here we are, making us one question which I think is really important in 2019. Can a sports organization be a business without media and a technology business? I mean, why any kind of company need kind of business like media and technology to be important nowadays? Estamos intentando, bueno, antes de nada, perdón por la ausencia de micrófono anteriormente, pero bueno, lo solventamos con lenguaje no verbal y sin ningún tipo de problemas. Pero quería presentar este nuevo panel poniendo una pregunta sobre la mesa y es ¿cuán importante es tener una buena base tecnológica y una buena base promocional en cuanto a media para cualquier tipo de empresa? Por eso hemos citado aquí a gente de Go For It, gente de FIFA, de Coca-Cola, gente de IMG o de Seven League para hablar un poco en esta mesa redonda sobre todo eso. I was wondering that, you know, I think it's really important to have people like from Go For It, people from FIFA, from the Coca-Cola company, Seven League or IMG, try to talk about this and to make some points clear because, you know, so many people, like, they think, okay, I got this company, but I don't really need any technology or media basis to try to be someone in this kind of world. So please welcome to Richard Ayers, Adolfo Bara, Ricardo Ford, Luis Vicente, and Marc Lemann. A big applause for them, please. So Richard, over to you.
Thank you so much. Afternoon, everybody. I hope you've had an excellent day at the World Football Summit. We have a really interesting question, and we also have a fantastic panel, because the range of skills that we've got amongst these guys and the backgrounds, you've probably read the biographies online, but you know, we have a man who was at a rights holder and is now in the IMG sales and world. We've got one of the biggest brands in the world who invests heavily in sponsoring football. We've got the biggest rights holder in the world. And we've got a tech investor who's doing a whole bunch of interesting things. So we've got all the different interesting angles that come around this question. And where this question comes from is, even recently, I thought this shouldn't even be an argument, but even recently, talking to some federations, talking to some people in some clubs, they say to me, our job is to organize football matches. It's to organize leagues. It's to be a club, not a media brand, not a technology entity. And there's just still this division between the two worlds. So, I mean, let's kick off with Luis. Luis, fundamentally, should every sports business be a media and tech company?
Yeah, the answer is yes, right?
Okay, good, thank you. Right, we're done.
We're finished. No, first of all, good afternoon, everyone. Pleasure to be here again, so for the third year in a row. I think that's definitely an unbelievable important question. I think we are definitely media companies, all the sports I know, but we don't really think as media companies. We are technology companies, but we don't necessarily think and act or execute as technology companies. So I think definitely there is still a lot of change that needs to happen, but very important and fundamental point for the future.
Okay. So, Marc, you invest in companies, okay? And what's your answer to that question? I mean, because you really understand tech companies, right? You've seen probably hundreds of them.
Yeah. So I believe that disruption, technology is not what causes disruption. I think unhappy customers, unhappy clients is what causes disruptions. So I don't necessarily think that every organization needs to be a technology company, but I think it needs to be enabled by technology and use technology to make its customers happy.
Okay, so enabled by technology, but not necessarily being a media. And does the same go for media and tech? I mean, is that similar kind of approach?
Well, I think that organizations that want to be very large organizations will have to become media and technology companies.
Okay.
But I think it's still possible to be a small organization and rely on partners for that technology.
So, okay, Ricardo, you've worked with, I mean, so many big sports organizations, and I guess some small ones as well, but those big ones in particular, that question, do they need to be media and tech, or is it about enabling, as Marc says?
Buenas tardes, cheers, patrocinador. For me,
A little higher?
The idea, I'm sorry, if you haven't noticed.
Okay, got it, yeah.
Okay, you're thirsty. I won't be soon. But anyway, I think that technology has become a distraction to a lot of right holders. And technology should be a commodity that any right holders can tap into, because there's a lot of providers in the market that can fulfill this need for content distribution. But for some reason, different right holders have been spending a lot of time and energy to create the capabilities necessary to distribute content and become a media company. And I think that at some point, that's going to detract their attention and their resources from their core business, which is deliver great content through events and develop great content to be delivered through multiple platforms. So,
okay. But that's quite a strong position. So are you thinking of anybody in particular? Anybody you would name as you think is getting distracted by technology?
No, I would never name anyone here. But it is happening in big and small organizations. You see small organizations that can barely set up their own events. They're so focused on thinking about distribution that they are dropping the ball in what their core business is. And I think that's going to be a problem. Of course, when you go to the large ones, if you talk to FIFA, when you talk to the International Olympic Committee, they have the resources, they have the capabilities, and they are determined to do it. But they are the exception to the rule. The rule are the smaller organizations, the local organizations that cannot afford to do it.
Okay. But Adolfo, you've been on both sides of this relatively recently. It's fascinating. And you know, in large organizations, now you're in a media distribution role. Do you echo that sense of, guys, don't try and do it all yourself, use other people to be able to facilitate?
I guess it depends from property to property. I think what is crucial, and it was said here, at the end, you have to produce great content, you have to focus on what is key. Great teams, great events and everything, but reality is we're in the modern world with a lot of technology around us. So you have to embrace it. And obviously you cannot embrace everything, so you need to prioritize what you need to do in-house, and that delivers you enough benefits to take it on board, and then to, like one of the speakers said, there are other things you have to outsource. So I think the balance of what you develop internally and what do you outsource and your partners is where you should focus as a right holder.
Okay. And that's the rights holder model. Is it different? Because, Marc, you've invested in, well, a whole different bunch of types. You might want to sort of profile some of the different types, because I'm not sure people would know, but that's not always content distribution. There are so many other things a sport can use media and technology for, right?
Definitely. So, yeah, maybe one example that would be interesting for this crowd is a company called Greenfly, which facilitates it makes it easier for rights holders and brands to share their stories with athletes and influencers, and also allows leagues, teams, brands to capture content from these influencers so that they can share it for their own use. So Major League Baseball, for example, uses this. Nike uses this to share content with thousands of athletes that they sponsor, and also capture content from these athletes, because nowadays it's very hard to share high quality content over WhatsApp, and you have to call them, email them, and Greenfly makes this much easier to share and capture content for social media.
But that's a standalone service that you can buy into, and people do, and it's great.
Yep.
I've played with it. It's a very good product. But the organizations themselves, that's not them becoming media and tech companies. That's them just knowing how to, find the right services, right?
Exactly. But it can be, I think, it's used together with other technology. So an example is the World Surf League. They've developed their own platforms and obviously have partners to make that possible. but then they use Greenfly to share content with the athletes. After each heat, they can share content with the surfers, and the surfer can simply pick, oh, I like this highlight, etc. I'm going to post this on my channels. So, yeah, I think you're going to have to develop technology yourself if you want to be very big, but it is becoming possible to use softwares that are available to everyone to make your life easier.
So that requires you to have a media and technology capability to make the decision, which is it's kind of a high-speed, agile tech. Luis, you've been building a team that does this kind of thing, right? Having that understanding.
Well, it's quite an interesting challenge because necessarily for how big the rights holder is, and I think we already say that FIFA, IOC, and other rights holders, we do have more resources than many others. But still, we don't have the resources of Amazon or Facebook or Microsoft to build things, to build products, even to offer services. I think the biggest piece for us is how can we once and for all democratize innovation, and how can we really use the robustness of our resourcing to basically offering different solutions, at an affordable cost or at no cost, as a service to many different entities across sport. I think if we don't democratize really innovation, I think we're all going to fail, right? Because it's always nice when you look at a big World Cup or you look at a big Formula 1 event or the Olympic Games, but actually that's not just what sport is about, right? For sport is also about a group of 10 friends playing football in the street. It might be as more dynamic than actually Real Madrid playing Barcelona, or even more exciting. So I think what we're trying to today accumulate is, first of all, knowledge, is using our budget and make it elastic, right? So as elastic it can be the best because we can do more things. But we need definitely to work side by side with the technology world, with the investment world, with our commercial affiliates, and with the largest media companies in the world to sort it out at scale.
So, talking about your commercial affiliates, Coca-Cola has a very significant media and tech capability. You can get to audiences pretty much anywhere in the world, right? You've got that control. So, when you're looking at FIFA or other organizations, what's your reflection on, do you even need them?
Well, you need to set up an ecosystem where each part of it brings something unique. So we, as a sponsor, we can work with FIFA. Of course, we have a commercial relationship, but FIFA has access to content and capabilities that we don't have and we don't need to have as a sponsor. We have to tap into specific capabilities for different tech companies that have either an expertise that none of us have, and whoever else you need to bring. Sometimes can be an influencer, sometimes can be an organization like a club, etc. But the idea of doing anything in isolation, I think it's where we just are missing an opportunity. Okay. So luckily, the best organizations, they are realizing this and they are working together. So FIFA and Coca-Cola and some of the players in the tech world, we partner to develop programs that can be great for people that are interested in consuming football. But I guess that's the key, how you set up this team so that everybody wins, that everybody benefits financially, and also doing what they are best at doing. Yeah.
But that feels like that requires a level of knowledge and understanding to be consistent across all the bits of the ecosystem. Adolfo, when you're working across, both La Liga, but also now, when you're working across organizations, do you see the right level of understanding, or do you see it varying? So, what's the DNA? In 7 League, we would call it the digital DNA. Are you seeing that level at the right height?
I think all the properties know what they need to do. The difference is how advanced they are in getting there, and the resources and the people they put to it. Like some of the, what I would say, like the biggest challenge is, we talk about technology. All the right holders, they produce the game, they film it, and they have to distribute to the consumers. Yeah. So in the past, the interface was the broadcasters. So broadcasters would air your product, they would pay you, and they would make money from advertisers. So that was a model that still exists. The challenge now is there are newcomers like the likes of Facebook, Instagram, like the social networks, which they use your content through these shareable, like fun experiences. So they basically use the football ecosystem to engage to the consumers, but with very little return to the right holder. Obviously not financial, because they don't share any of the money they make monetizing, but also in terms of data. They generate lots of data about consumer behavior and everything, but they don't share with us. So the challenge now is, I guess there are two things, is the traditional broadcasters, they obviously need to come into this new era and see how they can fight back that battle. And the challenge that we have is how we can engage with these newcomers to like bring them into the system in a way, in a good positive way, because right now they are not in, they are using our content, they're using the attachment experience, but they are not giving any return to the sport.
Yeah. So the value attribution modeling inside that is super important.
Yeah.
You've got to know where the flow is of the the data and the value in the ecosystem. Okay. So the technology also, we've talked a lot about media in terms of content distribution, but media and tech helps a whole bunch of other things inside sport, doesn't it? Luis?
Yeah. I think definitely there is a lot of angles that ecosystem provides to us, right? So the first, I'll say, is data. Data is quite an important tool for us nowadays, still not probably used to the intensity we all want. So we would love to know everything about the football community around the world, so we're still far away on that journey. It's a long journey. But in performance data, it's quite interesting what is happening, right? Wherever it is in terms of capability of understanding, player biometric data, how basically, how can we also create an entertainment experience for fans. So I think that's quite exciting pieces there. I think one interesting piece for me is actually new sports that comes from the merge of new media and new technologies. Again, esports, in our case, competitive gaming, football. It's quite exciting, that ecosystem, right? And for the first time now we see it's almost as exciting, or probably sometimes more exciting than the real game, because it's shorter. You see these amazing tricks, which is actually interesting when some virtual footballer tries to become a real footballer, tries to do the same tricks and doesn't really get there, unless you are Cristiano Ronaldo. But I'll say that it's quite an interesting dynamic, and I think definitely we're only in the beginning of a long journey. That requires actually us to be humble enough to work together. Work together, side by side every day, in order that we can really achieve the best result for the consumers and for the massive community that we represent.
Yeah, a couple of the panels earlier on today, I heard people talking about, we're not about online or offline, we're about what's the consumer, what does the audience want, what's the fan journey. Or the content guys were talking about the nature of the fan has changed, has transformed, that actually the timescales or the way and the mode of consumption is completely different. You talk about esports or eFootball. Marc, this is your area, right? I think you're involved in a team, aren't you?
Yeah, so I invested in a European esports team called G2, and they're doing very well. They're going to be they just won the European Championships in League of Legends, and are going to be in the World Finals now.
Do you see
month.
Similar kind of challenges to the ones that we're seeing in traditional sport? You same
Definitely.
Kind of thing? So okay.
Yeah, definitely similar challenges. Right now, they also rely on other platforms to reach their fans, and they think that in the long run they need to create those platforms themselves and control the fan experience. So it's definitely a topic as well.
Yeah. Okay. So, Ricardo, coming back to you, the esports area, I'm not sure if that's one that you've worked in particularly, but when you see, you talked earlier on, mentioned about scale being really important. And we're talking about scale, but also about sort of paradigms of sectors at the same time. So, how do the ecosystems map on top of that? This is sounding quite a sort of complicated, you need to know where you fit in the structures and across the different areas. Is it radically different, this question, depending on your sector and your scale? Is it a sort of fundamental that all sports face?
The challenges for esports are not very, very different than the challenges for a sport. A lot of people today are doing work on esports because everybody else is doing work on esports. So I guess you have to have clarity of why you need to be present and how you need to be present. So for a brand for a product which is a beverage, it makes sense to be part of esports because people drink something when they are playing, when they are watching, so it's a consumption occasion. So for brands like Coca-Cola, it makes sense to be when people are watching. So it's a media occasion. So you may choose to invest in esports through the media angle. Not very different for football. People watch football on TV. It's a consumption occasion of beverages and snacks and other things. So it makes sense for some of these brands to be involved with broadcasting. But you have to have clarity of that. Otherwise, you start jumping and doing different things. So we have multiple uses of esports, from sponsorships of large franchises, partnerships with others, and work with influencers, but also a lot of investment on media and broadcasting. So we have to cover because each place has a different needs but it's very, very similar to what's happening with what happens in the world of sports.
Okay, but sports has many different roles in society, right? And part of that is making money and being a good sustainable business and reinvesting, but part of it is also participation or sort of social health almost, right? Driving that forward. Does that change this equation about sports' role and its media and technology? Adolfo, does it make any difference, the fact that it's got a sort of grassroots responsibility as well, or is actually media and tech just as applicable for that?
I mean, there are to me, there are two separate things. I mean, the good thing about football or sports in general is that keep kids growing healthy, not doing things they shouldn't be doing. The values of sports like team building, effort, leadership, and so on are there. I guess the technology is there to serve, because to serve these kids that play football, they can film themselves, share videos, talk about the sport, and also, obviously, there are a lot of tools in technology to identify talent. So how you implement the whole technology world into the sport, whether it's for recreational, whether it's for grassroots to grow players into get to professional. So the challenge is how much you invest and where. And obviously there are some countries in the world where it's easier to do so, and there are some where people just play and there's no structure and there's no follow-up.
So some organizations, I think the LA Dodgers is one that pops to mind, but there are others who that word invest, they are taking that on board, right? They're moving into, this is our role, is to develop. And I mean, you're doing that independently, but is that a positive thing, do you think, to see the sports themselves investing?
Definitely. I think organizations should be looking at testing new things, definitely, and investing in those that they think are interesting to build partnerships with, because they're still at an early stage and they need that investment to build a great product.
Investing cash or investing time and energy and brand and data?
Yeah. Hopefully both, because sometimes it needs cash as well to get to build something great.
Yeah.
But time and energy already can be very helpful.
Okay. Luis, investment?
Yeah, I think definitely we are in an interesting time of sports. We all have been under a model that has been lasting for many years, so which is a model that is mostly based in safety, in advanced guarantees. For how long this model will remain, nobody knows. Some people here in these chairs might have different views, but necessarily there is a certain volatility that we need to consider. Then the question is, okay, how we replace this, right? And how we find ways to basically stay competitive, being able to keep reinvesting in the development of the game, being able to stay at the forefront. And this is not an easy question to reply, right? Because if you look at the traditional monetization streams of any sport, okay, media rights, linear media rights, they probably are not going to increase. I don't think this will be the most potential scenario, understanding that many of our partners in sports have been now, to elaborate different models, of distribution, democratize more distribution to get the proper return on investment. Sponsorship, it's a massive change, and probably I'll let this to Ricardo to explain later, but I think what commercial partners used to demand some years ago and what they need today, it's a totally different exercise that requires actually serious investment from sports rights holders to be able to cope with and to be able to deliver. Because without that, I don't think also there is too much interest on investing more money or increasing the level of exposure. So digital is still very much on its infancy, and as much as we talk about digital monetization, it will still take time. Again, it will be great if we all start from ground zero and we have no legacy and we can basically create a model that is fit to purpose for digital monetization, but I don't think any sports right holder, at least one that has been for many years, has this advantage. Even esports as a new sport and someone that is really definitely doing something extraordinary on digital monetization, even them, they cannot still, basically create a robust, scalable model on that. So this doesn't give us, many options. Again, one interesting case is when you look at, for instance, streaming, which is quite a fashionable item today, and Ricardo mentioned it before. So many people want to do it, but necessarily don't think about how they can do it, right? When you have no data, when you don't really know your consumers, when you don't really have enough content, so how can you really make it a monetizable item? And I really think we all need to look at forms of democratizing distribution, of creating something that for the end consumer is not very complex. It doesn't require a monthly plan or an annual plan, but is based really on their emotional moment where they want to consume that piece of content. And I think really as well, digital advertising needs to be empowered and needs to be used in a much more robust way. But at the end of the day, if we want to look at modern companies, I don't really know any business today that have grown organically just on their own without investment. Again, everybody will look today at how much is the value of Verizon or how much is the market value of Facebook or Amazon, right? With no investors like Marc and others, at that 10, 20 years ago, those companies today will not exist. And this is something that also sports need once and for all to take a look seriously and change and shift to the modern world.
So in a world where we've seen disruption, in fact, we're still seeing disruption, and I would guess there's another 10 years at least worth of disruption to go on, then the sponsorship models are radically changing. Your ability to get to an audience doesn't necessarily require the people you sponsor. You can find other ways to do that. The broadcast models are challenged and OTTs coming up. There's all those kind of variables happening. So there's a future-proofing, it sounds like we're saying, there's a future-proofing element of which sport almost needs to develop the capability to be able to kind of defend itself against the unknown changes that the world is offering. Do you see that from a sponsor point of view, this sort of disruption, the change in the balance of power?
So I don't disagree with you that the next 10 years there's going to be a lot of disruption. I disagree with you where only in the next 10 years going to be a lot of disruption. So I guess disruption is just the nature of the business, and it's going to continue to operate like that. From a sponsor standpoint, we just have to be focused on what we need to do. And our role in this system is very different than everybody else's. When it comes to development of sport, this is the role. Of course, every corporation has its duties to society, but the development of football is FIFA's job.
Yeah.
The job for the Coca-Cola company is to sell more beverages. And we partner with FIFA and with other organizations to be able to do it more effectively and do it better. But the models of how we partner are going to change. They are changing today, and a lot of the deals that we sign today, they are based in value exchange. We help right holders to develop their properties. We provide access to right holders to communities that they don't have access on their own. There is a financial component in most of the deals, but more and more the best right holders, they have realized that the value exchange can have multiple forms. And it really depends on the maturity and the level of development and sophistication of the right holders on how each of these different currencies combine to get to a deal.
But you would have an expectation that a sports rights holder, somebody you were going to partner with, that they have some capability, like you're going to need them to be able to work with you on the media and technology.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, this is so.
And if they don't have it,
they have to provide solutions. And sometimes the solution is just the content, sometimes the solution is the content and the platforms and the distribution, but this is what we are buying, right? Otherwise, I don't need a partnership.
Yeah. Okay. I'm being given the almost finished sign. Adolfo, big technology companies, like you're in a company, it's not a big tech company, but it's a big company. Big tech companies, friend or foe, or horrible word, frenemy? But where do you stand on big technology companies, and whether sport should sport just partner up with the big ones and to solve this kind of problem?
I mean, the ideal scenario is you partner with the big companies to find a mutual good solution for everybody. Obviously, there are challenges in every sport, and I mean, Luis and I were having a discussion a few weeks ago about like a specific challenge, and you as a sport organization, you cannot reach everybody at any time, everywhere. It's impossible. But you need to deliver things in areas where you don't have the capabilities. So to have the right partners, whether it's you want to do something in a country, Coke has a great experience with, they already did something similar, so you partner with them to deliver. Same thing with these big technology companies. If we're able to convince them that, because they are giants, like sometimes you go to them to ask for something and it's like, who are you to ask for this? Like, and I'm not talking about like us IMG, like the likes of FIFA or La Liga or the Premier League. They are so big and sometimes they are so arrogant, it's really hard to do things with them. So if we are able to, as a sports, to unite and go with them and find a solution good for everybody, it's going to be for the good of the game, because then you have the data to access the consumers, to share information, to talk about values, to talk about engagement and so on. And at the end, you also have a way to monetize, because we shouldn't forget that the reason why we distribute content, why we find sponsors, is because we need to reinvest into the sport. It's like I don't know many sports organizations that really make money. All the money that they do, they give back to the players, grassroots, community, and so on. So to keep the wheel turning, you need to have that understanding with the big tech companies, which is not easy. And I know that we've all tried in some shape or form, and we haven't found the model yet.
Yeah, and that collaboration is really key. One of the collaborations you can do is you can talk to an investor and you can say, help me build the technology capability, help me. Isn't there a risk for a sport that if they're talking to an investor, I'm paraphrasing, but aren't investors basically after a quick buck? You want to invest something, you want to see a cash return in a 3-year time window, and actually sport quite often needs to take much longer, and it can't just sort of turn it around that much.
Yeah. I think you have to find the right partners. There are short-term minded investors, and there's also some that are willing to be with you for a long time and grow something sustainable. So, that is, tricky to do, but you have to find the right partners.
Okay, all right. Outside of football, who's doing it well? Who's using media and technology? Who do you look at? Because there's so many people from football here. Well, who do you look at and think, do you know what? Actually, that's a thing that football could learn from. Luis?
Well, I will have two sports. One, of course, NBA is, I think it's, and it's not a perfect example because I don't think there is a perfect example, but I'll say is a very mature, is a really role model. So, of course, you cannot replicate necessarily the advantages of being, a very centric US sports, but also with some global penetration. But the way they always look at how they can innovate on media and technology and everything that comes out of it, I think it's invaluable. It's unbelievably important. So there is that culture out there that lives and breathes every minute of the day. Then the second one, of course, for me is Formula One. I think there's been a lot of criticism, since Formula One was acquired by Liberty Media. So of course, as highly technology sport, sometimes even too much because the costs, sometimes are too high because of that. But I think it's about time that we start to realize actually the good job that the media company is doing, on a sport that involves a lot of technology and is becoming actually a very healthy media product, right? I think if you look at Formula One Grand Prix today, it's a great experience, right? For everyone that is on site, for everyone that has a mobile device and just wants to see enjoying a entertainment experience, or someone that wants to enjoy a good streaming. And I think it's really great to see how that sport is really becoming modernized, and it's just a question of time. But that will be my two role models.
Marc, who would you look at outside of sport? Who's doing that kind of... We're talking really about a digital transformation journey, about the ability to develop, to future-proof, to develop your staff, all of that sort of capability that we're talking about. Who does it really well, outside of football?
I would say esports is doing something interesting. I mean, they're really finding new ways to connect with their fans, and it's a much more engaging experience when you watch esports. There's you can chat and you're on different platforms at the same time.
Twitch platform has some real power to it, doesn't it? Yeah.
Exactly. So I think the esports the fan experience of watching esports is much more engaging.
Yeah.
And I think that's something football can learn from.
Yeah. Ricardo, give us some examples. Who do you look at and think they're smashing it?
So in different areas, I think that in terms of consistency and quality of output, I think Heineken does a great job. Yeah. Very focused, very broad, very consistent execution. It's very hard to get to that standard. I agree with Luis. I think that the Formula One team and each of the teams, they are making a big effort to become platforms on their own and create a system, a group that can work together and provide solutions for sponsors. I like the work. The Lever Cup that just finished. I think that there's a different take on entertainment, not only on how you structure the event itself, but also how you distribute. And I think it's a more modern way of watching the sport. So it depends on where you look. And of course, I'm saying this. I mean, there's a lot of great work that some of our partners do. The International Olympic Committee has made a lot of effort to develop content distribution through the Olympic Channel. There's a lot of work that just happened at FIFA with the broadcasting of the African qualifiers, which sounds very simple, but it's very complex. Yeah. And my friend Luis aged a couple of years because of that. So there are pockets of different things that inspire us to do more work.
Yeah, great. Mr. IMG, you can say UFC if you want, but...
I was going to say.
who outside of football, who do you look at?
Like they mentioned, the obvious one, Formula One, the NBA. I mean, you just said, we own UFC, and I think we're doing pretty well. And the fact that when you talk about technology and controlling the delivery, like when you own something from the athletes, the events, the media, the production, the digital, the delivery, you can create a great product. And I think that that's a good example, but to your question, I think there's no perfect model. You can take learnings from everybody. Like I would also talk about the MLS. We talk about football, and football is in Europe, it's La Liga, it's the Premier League, it's Serie A. But you go to see the guys from the MLS, digital, they do a great job. They have People as contracted as freelance that create content in all the stadiums. They have like, I think it's around 90 people creating content, and then I have a specific team that works on distribution, on engagement. So I think whichever organization you go to talk to, you will find something where you can learn and implement in your own one.
Great. All right, so the kinds of topics that we've covered are, there's a digital transformation journey to go on. There's a challenge that is faced because disruption is the norm. Like, it's just a change that is happening that we have to adapt to. That we're going to future-proof sport, that we're going to build scale and the ability to be able to deliver media and technology, even if that comes through partnership or investment or finding a way to make it work for your size and scale within the business, right? I think that's a reasonable summary. I should at this stage also add, I'm Richard Ayers from 7 League, and if you want help doing that, you know where to find me. But these guys have been fantastic. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for your input, and please say thank you to our panel.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Richard, and the rest of the gentlemen. Thank you very much. This is so interesting. So many people as well here in the audience. Okay, one more to go. We got Javier Tebas from La Liga almost ready, so give us 5 minutes and we'll be with the president of La Liga here in Spain. 5 minutitos, que ya está Javier Tebas preparado, así que nada, en 5 minutillos acabamos con las ponencias del día de hoy y recordamos 2 o 3 cositas que tenéis que tener en cuenta, ¿vale? 5 minutes and we'll be back. Thank you very much.